We start again. Okay, so this is how to write your best-selling book, to design it, to publish it, to print it, and sell it over and over again. Okay, so I have written 4 books. I've translated 3 of them to different languages, and I'm going to show you how I believe that book writing can be actually very doable, very enjoyable, very simple, and it can be something that you're going to get into a rhythm, and then you'll be able to do it over and over and over again. So my name is, on social media, I'm Petra Eat Juicy, because my website is Eat Juicy, and I support people around eating healthy and just living a more extraordinary, empowered life. And I've also written a bunch of books, but they're not necessarily all about that. You know, I've written books for men. I've written a detox book on how to detox the body. My first book is called I Am Amazing, which is to teach you mind empowerment. Then I have a book on relationships. And yeah, and I'm happy to go in different kind of directions. It doesn't have to be one way. And I think that's the same for all of you. You really, you know, you might be wanting to channel something, but then eventually you'll realize, like, oh, I know a little bit of stuff about this, and maybe I want to write a book. And the books can be in different sizes, right? Like you can have a 200 something page book, but then you can also have like a little mini book, you know, that's just a few of your ideas or whatever you want. And it can just be small. It doesn't have to be big novels every time. So like I said, these are my books that I've written. So these are the 11 steps to create your best-selling book. Okay, so we're just going to go through them. I'm going to give you as much information as I can. And then afterwards, we can ask questions and go through all of that together. And we can go back and look at the slides again. So I would say that these are the main things to focus on when you're writing your book. So you want to think about what kind of book you want to write. So some of you already have some ideas, even like the word bathroom book came up. That was something for me. I wanted to write a bathroom book. I wanted to write a book that, you know, people could just like open and it's like, oh, there's some nugget there, or they could read a chapter going pee, or maybe other stuff. But it was just like kind of simple, you know, like easy to digest. One of my things about the way I teach also is it's really like, it's very doable. It's easy to digest. It's easy to understand. I like to give analogies to people, so it really gets in their brain, because my belief is that when people understand something or they have the knowledge behind it, they're more likely to do it. So for me, these are a lot of self-empowerment, self-help, you know, make your life better kind of books that I write. So for me, it was important to write them in a way that people could like apply it. Okay, so that's something that you might want to think about in your books. It could just be, you know, just beautiful photos, but it's also, if you want to instruct people in something, or you want them to maybe do something, take action, like for example, even donate to the charity that you want, or take action on the street dogs. Maybe there's like a way that you could write it, or you could put things inside of your book that help people take action. Feeling of the book is number 2. And that for me is very important. I believe that everything I do is all about the feeling. And the feeling for me is about how I want the reader to experience my content, or this experience, right? Like this is a ride. You're going to put people on a ride. They're going to open up your book, and they're maybe going to go from front all the way to back. And maybe they're going to do it, you know, in one weekend or in one sitting, because it's so yummy and it feels so good for them. So it's like, how do you want them to feel? So for me, it's always about this idea that people are reading it, and the book is like slowly more and more expanding them, more and more opening their heart, more and more activating them. It's like they're getting deeper and deeper. They're falling more and more in love with themselves. It's just like you're falling into a yummy hole. So for me, that was important. If you're writing a book, you know, like about more education, like, for example, even just how to be a goddess, or how to be a priestess, or how do you learn these ancient ways? Again, could you do it in a way that maybe someone who's not even aware of something like that is slowly coming into your world, and you're slowly more and more expanding them, right? So even maybe the photography you use it's creating an experience just visually and feeling, and, you know, tactile. We're all obviously sentient beings. We all have you know, high level of feeling, especially all of us in this group. So it's like, how do you want that person to feel? The style of the book, again, we'll go into more detail in each one, but the style of the book also, you know, it's like, again, do you want it to be a bathroom book? Do you want it to be pictures? Do you want it to be a novel? Do you want it to be various kinds of stuff? The structure of the book. So again, how is it structured? What's the layer of the chapters? How does it move? You know, what does it look like on the inside? The brain dump of the book, which some of you maybe have done, but that for me is where you're literally just dumping down everything that you can think of that comes with this book or another idea. And you might even find that once you brain dump, you actually have 3 books in there. You know, it's like, you just want to get it all out, all those thoughts, all those ideas, all those titles you've heard, you know, in your subconscious, just everything that's just kind of come, the ideas, the things you want, the recipes, whatever, you just want to brain dump it all. And we'll go into more detail. The download of the book, for me, that's the writing of the book. And again, you can just write it, or you can choose to create a download channel, which we'll talk about a little bit in more detail, where you're just allowing the book to really flow out of you and you're hearing the messages and things that want to come. The design of the book. So, you know, like maybe you don't even know, but most books have, you know, this, and then there's a subtitle, and then there's like a whole little section here, and then there's the back of it. And then there's, you know, the interior chapters and the stuff that you have to write and the acknowledgements. There's like a bunch of stuff that's kind of like the design of the book. The layout of the book, pretty similar, but also how are you going to get it from your computer, which is probably going to be in a Word document or maybe even in your journal. How are you going to get it to an actual like physical looking book inside of a computer so that then you can take it to a printer or you can send it onwards, right? If you are going with like potentially a traditional publisher route, you don't actually have to do the layout part, because most of them will do a lot of this stuff for you, but they'll lay it out for you. So you would just maybe send them a manuscript, which would be in a Word document form. But if you are going to go more the self-publishing, which is what I've done, and which I think I will encourage most of you to do, unless, you know, you've got great connections, but even so, you could just start with this while you're working the publisher route. Then you'll want to know how to lay the book out. So either you lay the book out yourself, you hire someone who knows a certain software, or you literally just give the entire, you know, thing to someone to lay it out for you. It depends on how involved you want to be, how much resources and money you have to do it, and how much creative control you want. Then the publishing of the book. So again, we just mentioned that, but either you're going to self-publish or you're going to publish. The printing of the book. So obviously finding a really good printer and knowing how to, you know, deal with the printer so that you get an actual physical result. And then also the selling of the book. So whether you know, are selling it online or you're selling it in physical form, what are some options for you to be able to use this as a financial resource, as well as just something, you know, fun for you to have, to give to friends, to be able to, you know, sell in shops, to be able to sell with your, maybe a coaching package or something that you've got, or you're going to do a workshop, maybe at the back of the room, you're selling your book. You know, there's just so many different kinds of things that you can do with your book. So let's go into detail with each of those points. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more. And then if you've got questions, again, just write them down, and then we'll go back and go into more detail here. So the first we're going to talk about is the kind of book that you want to write. So each of you have shared with me a little bit about the kind of book you want to write, but let's just maybe even expand further, because again, this could be one book of many, right? Once you kind of get into it and you actually enjoy the process and you enjoy expressing yourself creatively this way, this is art, right? Everything you create is art, whether you do a talk, whether you create a mandala, whether you create a beautiful piece of food for someone, whether you do a workshop, it's all your art. It's your spirit, your energy coming through. So this is just one way that you can express yourself, right? Doing talks, poetry, art, whatever that is. But this is one form of art. And again, the more creative control you have, the more you're involved with the design of the covers, the sides, the back, you get to express yourself more and more in this process, right? You might not want to, you might just want to write it and literally hand it off to someone, and that's fine too, you know, and then you can have a couple adjustments, and it just kind of totally depends on how you want to play. So some types of books that probably most of you know is obviously like fiction and nonfiction. So if you're obviously writing, you know, some kind of novel series, then it's going to be fiction, and that has a little bit of a different form to what I'm talking about here. So I'm not going to dive too much into sort of creating novels, because that's very story based. right? That's creating a whole line of maybe the hero's journey or whatever you want to create. You could take your knowledge and things that you really are passionate about that you would normally teach, and you could teach them inside of a story. So, you could make it into a fiction book, but you're actually, instead of it just being, just a fiction book, let's say, it can be this whole layer of your teachings all weaved into this story. So but that goes deeper into storytelling, and it's just another layer to writing a book that I myself am not experienced in. I don't write books like that. I write more of the self-help, self-empowerment, recipe kind of like action type of books. Okay. You can also write an autobiography or a biography where it's about you and your life. And I know a lot of people that do that. Again, depends on how far you want to take that and how much you want to weave that. Because unless you're obviously a famous person, but even if you're a famous person, I feel like it's nice to read about their life, but I would much rather read about some level of empowerment that they've got, some way that they can empower me. So if it is an autobiography, or a biography, could you weave it in with stories of things to inspire, ignite? I guess it depends on, again, where you're coming from. But from me, I come from a very teacher perspective. I want to help raise the collective consciousness of humanity. I want to raise the vibrations, the light. And I feel like most of us in this group are in that kind of space where we just want to do kind of good or better, or we want to make people happier. So even if it is like a little bathroom book that's got a bunch of quotes in it, maybe when someone's sitting there on the bathroom, they're like, oh my God, this just inspired me today. I feel so good, And I just feel like that for me is more a reason to write a book than maybe your own story. But that's no judgment. Obviously, I'm not really in my books, so I write in a different way. Most of my books are actually not really about me at all, except for this little one's got a little bit my story in it. So again, your choice. Obviously, like cookbooks or some type of picture books or instructional type of books. Again, depending on how much imagery you want in it, that's a whole nother layer to self-publishing as well as printing your books, right? If there's actually images in it that need to be really high quality, high resolution, that's going to be like a whole nother kind of conversation than what we're sort of doing here. Like this is, I've got some images in my book. I'll show you. The only image actually in my book is my photo, and it's pretty decent. And this is from a regular printing shop, right? So you could put recipes in here, but it might not be that same kind of like glossy, unless you're going now with glossy paper. You're just taking it to a whole new level. Obviously, probably more expensive to print, that kind of thing. So my books are mainly words, quotes, and then like blank pages to create space and separation. And they're just easy to print, and they're easy to sell. They don't cost very much money, and they're just kind of light and doable. So again, that's the kind what kind of book do you want to write? How to, right? You want to be more instructional? Do you want to be more inspirational? Do you want to teach someone how to do something? Do you want to just raise awareness around something? There's like all different types of ways. There is obviously poetry and maybe song and just love sonnets and just things that you just want to express yourself. Maybe you just have a lot of creativity inside of you that you just really want to express in, whether that's poetry or whether that's your channeling downloads or ideas that you have or something. You can also write a book like that. It's just like your compilation of ideas, maybe, your physical sort of journal. And if you feel that there's enough in it that someone would want to buy it and that it would sell over and over and over again, obviously you're not going to know that until it kind of happens, but you got to kind of come from that space of either this is something personal for you, you write it, maybe you print 10 copies, you give to your closest friends, and then it sits in your bathroom and in your bookshelf, and you're just happy you wrote a book. That's obviously fantastic too. It takes a lot of discipline and energy to write a book, so that's fantastic. Or you could have something that you could actually physically go and do consignment in your different shops in wherever you live. You can sell it online on Amazon, on other platforms. You can create ebooks. You can create audiobooks with it. You can use it like where you're selling it maybe in different organizations because you're supporting organizations. So there's many ways that you can actually create this book. Again, kind of prayer for me is prayer is a little bit more where you're maybe doing affirmations or certain type of things for people to just kind of more connect to themselves and to be able to create more spirituality and connection and self-love to themselves. And I would say in this, you want to kind of think about who's your reader. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to niche it down. I'm not talking about doing it kind of from that business perspective where you're like, oh, my reader is 40 years old and she's da 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 da, and she's, drinks coffee every morning. You could, and you'd have a certain way to write to that person. So you could definitely do it that way. Or it's just kind of like, for me, it was like my reader in my mind, my reader in most of these books is someone who's just looking for a little bit more self-connection, who's looking for a little bit more awakening, who's looking for a little bit more empowerment, a little bit more health tips, wants to feel better, wants to be happier, wants to have more self-love, wants to feel more powerful in the mind. It's like I'm creating almost like this base level knowledge for humanity. That's what I just feel like. These books are all about like things like you just kind of gotta know, I think, from obviously my perspective, but then prospectively, I've been reflected it back because people write to me, tell me how much they love my books, how much it's changed them, how the books sell in the shops, right? They're always being resold and restocked. So there is the universe has given me a feedback to say, something you're doing is working. And then, the last book I wrote is a men's book, and it was coming from that perspective. I'm a woman. I know a lot of obviously women who want to be in more conscious, kind relationships, who want to be with the empowered masculine, the warrior, rather than the disempowered, toxic masculine. And I also have a lot of men in my life that I felt like just maybe don't even know how to really talk to a woman or how to pick her up or kind of how to navigate in that. And so I created a book that helped empower the men, gave them confidence and empowerment with every word they read, but it's also giving them nuggets on how to be with a woman, how to date a woman, how to, pleasure a woman, various stuff, right? So again, just something I felt called to teach. So I wrote a book about it. And then I've taught some workshops about it, but it could be something where it could be a program, it could be workshops, it could be anything. Actually, a friend of mine actually approached me and said, this looks really interesting. I'm thinking maybe it could be a great TV show. She's a movie producer in Vancouver. Sorry, I dropped my book. And I was like, yeah, that sounds perfect. So you just never know where your books could go. So, okay, so I've just talked to you a little bit about my books, and also, the other potential for your books is to translate them into your language. So I'm from the Czech Republic. I actually had found someone who did a very good job translating 2 of my books to Czech. And I now have also this book, which is I Am Amazing. So this is I Am in Czech, is now translated to Bahasa Indonesia. So that I could support women and men, but I find maybe more women will buy the books than men, but either have bought. So you could translate them to your language, find someone maybe to collaborate with. Maybe if you do find a publisher, maybe you find someone who, just as a side gig, maybe it doesn't cost you very much money, but you can translate to your language. When you go back home, you've got your family, your friends, you could be selling the book, you could be doing a couple workshops about your book. Just the possibilities are endless. So let's start with the feeling of the book, and we elaborated a little bit on it, but it's again, just the experience that you want to give to your reader. So even if, it is a cookbook, and it could be just like recipe, and that would be a cookbook. Or you could actually start thinking about how you want to inspire someone. How do you want to inspire them to start making healthier food? How do you want to inspire them to get on the goddess path? How do you want to inspire them to look at the dogs on the street and actually maybe do something about it? How do you want to inspire someone with certain words or quotes or certain things that you just want to infuse into them? How can you help people enlighten, right? It's all about put more light into a body. So again, for me, these are just things that are inspiring and empowering to me and important to me. Is inspiration, empowerment, self-love, activation, heart opening, mind expanding. I want it to be a journey for someone. I want the book to make a difference in their life. A big thing that I write the books is it's like it's you are your best friend reading to yourself. So it's very, I don't want to write in university language. I want to write how a friend would maybe talk to you, how you would talk to yourself, but hopefully in a more empowering way, right? So a lot of people have told me that, they just want to get home and read the book and curl up because in bed, because they find that it's just like, it's so yummy. And it's like what kind of they wish their friends said to them, or they wish their parents said to them, or they wish they knew that they could say that to themselves. Because if you don't know, the reason for my books, the reason it's called I Am Amazing is because I actually chose and got the, I would say universal kind of download and signs that to change my books to the I am way of reading. So most books you read will be saying you are amazing and you're a great person and you can have a great life. And it's using the word you, which as you read it, it's kind of like a deflective because you start reading like you are an amazing person. Well, that doesn't hit me as strongly as when I say I am an amazing person. So one of my things that I do with my books is they're written where the person is reading it to themselves. They are self-empowering and empowering their mind and changing their belief systems with every word that they read, right? So that's what I think makes my books yummy and a bit more effective. But I've also been, really a big advocate of this I am consciousness, and even songs that, songs are sung like you are an amazing person. It's like, what if the song and everyone's singing it again, deflecting? What if they were singing I am an amazing person? It's so much more impactful. So for me, there's a desire for a bigger impact. And if you have that desire, it's so doable for you. And I feel that it will just elevate your books to that next level. So the other is that we're going to talk about is the style of the book. So these are some different kinds of styles and things, right? So word choice, obviously words are spells. How do you want to use your words to create an experience for someone? So it's important the type of words you use. I would say, to be conscious of that, just don't be writing. It's like, be conscious, like what kind of words am I using? Like, how am I putting my words together? How is the level of my consciousness in the moment I'm writing my book? If I'm really grumpy and pissed off and angry at whatever, I'm going to be writing a book that's going to probably have a little bit of that connotation in there, right? It's going to be a little bit like pissed off, fuck you energy. And do you want to read that? As a reader, would you want that? Would that make you feel yummy? The writing style. So again, you get to play with how you want to write, how you want to create. Again, what kind of book, but also and we'll go a little bit more into detail about my book so you can understand, but there's just a style that you would want to write, like a certain flow. What mood are you in, and what mood do you want to create for the person? What kind of perception are you wanting to create for someone as they're reading the book? Are you wanting to shift their mindset on some stuff? You can do that. I mean, you have the power of language, you have the power of intention, you have the power of, your own, like, this is what I'm declaring, this book is going to be this. I intend, before I get on this call, before I do any speech, before I do anything, I create an intention. And my intention is that my words will go from my heart to your heart, and you will receive it inside of your heart. And then everything that you say to me will come from your heart into my heart. And then this is how we will communicate throughout this entire experience together, rather than head to head, right? So you can do the same with your books. You can create an intention. You can set a mood. You can set a style. You are in control. You're in power, and you get to play with this form of art. Air breathing, for me, the style is that, so I didn't take photos of my books, but I will just show you maybe like this on video. But so for example, if you can see, I actually do not space my books the same as the traditional way. So that's one of the reasons I chose to self-publish, is because I wanted to do stuff like kind of like a rebel, but I just wanted to do it my way. I didn't think just because it's the traditional way that we've written books forever, it doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Now, if you go with a traditional publisher, then I would say, wait, so I know someone's popped a chat. So we can't see what you're showing. Oh, shoots. Okay, maybe like that. When it's closer. So if you can see, my books are spaced quite a bit apart. So I've actually chosen, normally I believe it's like, I mean, you can go online. I apologize, I didn't pull this up, but you can literally go online and just find like, what are the specs of writing a book? You know, like what's the spacing? You could just Google like, what's the spacing of a traditional book? And it'll tell you it's like a certain amount. And most books are very squished together. Each line is very squished together. Each chapter, see how my chapters have a space? Each chapter is squished together. And I just found it like, oh, it's so heavy. You know, it's so much it feels like a lot of information. Let me just check something again. So number 12 of Press Still. Maybe I'm not getting it. Am I just not showing it to you guys? Is it not showing on? Oh, maybe it needs to be right here. Am I doing it wrong? Like maybe that. Can you guys see that? I think so now. Sorry, I was going to the Zoom camera rather than to my phone, my camera. So can you just reply back to me? You still can't see it? Shit sticks. Are you kidding me? Can you see that? Can you see my book, like the text? Ah, okay, I understand. It's because it's screen sharing. It probably doesn't pick it up. Got it. Bummer. Okay. So, okay, I will show you after. So the idea is that most books are very squished together. They, you know, the text is like a lot. And I just found for an inspirational book, a book that I want the energy to be like this, I didn't want that traditional way. So again, if you do choose to go with a traditional publisher, which nowadays I don't even know if that even barely exists. There's something about there's the traditional publisher, there's self-publishing, and there's something in the middle, which I can also contact you with someone that if you want to go down that route, where they actually take a lot of this back end stuff that you would be doing, like the layout, the editing, the design of the book, you know, all the stuff that a publisher would do, but coming more from a kind of like a hybrid between the two. So a little bit more free, a little bit more connected to you. You still own the rights of your books. You know, there's like a little bit more of that, but it's not quite a publisher, but it's sort of the next layer, and it's easier to get in because you're just paying. So you pay someone, maybe it's about like the last lady I interviewed was $20,000. So to basically kind of do the whole back end of the book, and then also to get it up on Amazon and get it to bestseller. Now, to be on bestseller on Amazon, just FYI, just like to be a New York Times bestseller, it's just a numbers game. It's literally a system. It's not because that book is the best. It is because there is an entire campaign behind it, just like with New York Times bestseller, where they just know they buy a shitload of books within 24 hours. It takes the ranking, you know, the statistics of the, you know, basically the search engine that Amazon is to, you know, number one, or even the New York Times bestseller, all of that. It's just numbers. So if you team up with someone that is very savvy with that, or you can learn to do it on your own, where you can create a whole campaign for yourself, where you're kind of, you know, trying to sell that Kindle book for 99 cents, or it's free for 24 hours, and you're sort of pumping the numbers. That is how you become a bestseller. It's just a strategy marketing game. It doesn't mean anything whether the book is good or not, unfortunately. So again, the bathroom, easy to read, breathing, bathroom reader, you get to kind of choose with that. I just want to ask you guys, can you just tell me, can you actually see me though, or you just hear my voice? Because here I am like playing to a screen thinking you see me on the Zoom, and maybe you just see screen share. Can you just tell me? Because I just want to know for future. Oh my God, are you joking? Okay, then that's boring as heck. Okay, I'm stopping screen share. Or I don't know, hold on. You should be able to see me as well. Okay, anyway, we're just gonna move through this. How silly. I've been literally acting to camera the entire time. I'm thinking you guys can see me showing you my books, talking to you, whatever. How silly. Okay. Okay, so then let's just go to the structure of the book. So the structure of the book is basically chapter sizes, the page spacing, blank pages to create breathability, the title, the subtitle, having an ISBN number, creating a dedication in the beginning of the book, maybe having book praises by people that have read your book, either at the front or the back, you know, having a letter to the reader, whether that's coming from someone as a guest. You could have a guest do if you see a lot of books, you'll have someone who's like the guest that has written something about the author and something about the book, especially if it's a famous person that may help your boostability of your books. Or you can write a letter just to the reader, like, I've written this book because of this and this is why I'm passionate, this is who I am, and I'm so excited for this book, and I'm, you know, just excited for you to share this, like, let's go. And then the chapters, and then as well as references, if you want to have references in the back of your book. I don't go into like super factual scientific type of references. I've done references of things I talk about or things that inspire me. So for example, I have certain, in this particular book, the I Am Amazing book, you know, I have certain authors that have inspired me, that have, you know, or different kinds of centers or consciousness things or things you could check out further. And I include a lot of that so people can just do further research. So again, chapter sizes, it just sort of depends on how you want to write your book. But because I love having a bathroom reader type of book, I want to create a book that, you know, is short chapters, succinct, to the point. I want people to get through it quickly. I want them to be able to open it, read something, get a nugget. You know, it's a couple of pages at most. It's a little bit more like, it's not double spaced, but it's like 1.5 or 1.25 spaced than the regular. So it feels like it's breathing. People have air. I add blank pages to my book so that, and they're not blank, they have a quote or a little image or something to inspire people. One, because I always want to start my chapters on one side. I like that style. You don't have to. Your chapters could start on either side of the book pages. But I like that. And I also like adding that breathability. I like adding in like a little quote or something that's just a little nugget that just sort of inspires people further. The title of your book, obviously you're going to have a title. Then there's a subtitle that would just help describe your book a little bit further. And obviously, when you put it up on Amazon, I'll talk about that. You can make your subtitle really big, which you can put a bunch of words in it and a bunch of descriptions so that people maybe come across it easier, but also so it captures them. But you sort of want to have a subtitle that's a little bit of like a catchy tagline, explains your book, but just gets people to kind of be like, yes. And then you obviously need to have an ISBN number and a page where you just write like, you know, this is the first draft. This was edited by so-and-so. Again, I'll show you visually. And then you want to get an ISBN number, which is not difficult to get. So you need to get an ISBN number if you're going to sell your books physically. For Amazon, they don't want you to have an ISBN number on it because they want to be able to put their own on it. But if you are going to sell in shops, a lot of shops find it's helpful for you to have that barcode, the ISBN number. Maybe you want to have a dedication at the beginning of your book, you know, like someone that maybe inspired you or someone that you love or someone that's passed or something. So you could think about who you want to dedicate the book to. Book praises are really from people that have read your book. I put always a couple praises on the back of my books. So on the back, I'll show you that I always stick like, you know, 2 little quotes there. And I used to have the praises for my book at the back of the book. And I noticed a lot of kind of popular books stuck them at the front. And so I started doing that. But truthfully, I felt like, again, if I'm really committed to the journey of an author, of a reader, getting into the book and right away just reading like after another, like, this book is great. This book is great. I guess they do it so that the person's like, wow, this book must be great, pumped up. But I don't know. I just want it to be more about the reader. And so for me, I feel like on my next shift of my books, I will put it again at the back. And then again, your chapters, if you want to have chapter 1, 2, 3, whatever that looks like, pages, whether you stick chapter titles on the top of your pages. You know, there's again that standard traditional way that the name of the chapter is on every second page and then this chapter number. And it's like, I just thought it's just clutter. I don't want any of it. I just want it to be really clean. And so I did it the way I wanted. And again, if you want to have references or anything you want to further point people to that they can get further information, then you can. Oh, Astrid says she sees me now. Okay, good. You see a little picture of me. Okay, well, better little picture than nothing. Okay, good. Okay, so then the brain dump. So I have invited a few of you to brain dump. And if you haven't, that's okay, because you might get a bunch of ideas here and you want to take a little bit of time for yourself. And a brain dump can look like you're brain dumping over months. You know, you literally are like, oh, I've got another idea. And you have a little notebook that maybe it's like the brain dump can happen many ways. So you can have yourself a little notebook that's just for your book. And you put that in your purse, you put that in your bag, wherever you go. And anytime you get an idea, something's coming. Yeah, oh my God, I really want to talk about this. You knot it in your brain dump. You could brain dump by just getting a big journal and just writing all of these ideas down. And again, take a drink of water, people. Again, anything, let it be free. You know, that's like what the idea of like journaling and is that idea where you're just allowing stuff to come, you know, get relaxed, maybe go in nature, maybe just grab a cup of coffee, grab a glass of wine, like whatever makes you feel relaxed and good and in the flow. You know, grab your journal and then just start brain dumping. You know, I heard the titles of my books before I wrote the books. You know, this book actually had several titles. I thought it could be called I Am Empowered or I Am Extraordinary. And I felt like even though I set out to create an extraordinary life and that was my beacon, I just felt like it was a little like not attainable for people, but they just felt like for people to say about themselves, like I am extraordinary. It was just such a far stretch that I thought maybe people couldn't kind of like catch it for themselves. I wanted them to catch it for themselves. And I Am Empowered, maybe I thought people would think it's a little bit more like, you know, the word power is used a little bit wrongly in our society. When someone's powerful, it's like, oh, they're egoic or they're bitchy or whatever. And so I just also felt like, I don't know, it was a little triggered, that word. So amazing came to me and I felt like it was a big enough stretch. I didn't want to be just like, I am great. Yeah, a lot of people can get that. How you doing? I'm great. I'm good. I'm good. You know, it's just like standard. I wanted it to be a little bit more like a stretch. I wanted people to be like, I'm amazing. Well, not really, but maybe. So again, use your title and just write down everything for the brain dump. You know, also any like thoughts, you know, if you're writing that recipe book, it's like, oh yeah, I want to talk about this particular ingredient, or I've got this idea for this. So a little journal, big journal, paper, you know, maybe a big whiteboard, whatever kind of works for you. I personally, or a Word document, I personally like using Excel. And if you've not used Excel, it's, you know, it's got the little like boxes, right? So what I like doing is I like actually kind of like opening the screen of the Excel and then dumping all my stuff in each of the boxes so that I could just kind of like move it around almost like puzzle pieces. So then eventually, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, chapter 1 is going to be about this. Chapter 2 is going to be about this. Chapter 3 is going to be about this. And I start moving the ideas inside of there. And again, I might not use them all. I might move them again. I might reformat the chapters. Chapter 1 might now be chapter 20 because it doesn't work in the front. But it's a way that I can kind of move stuff around. Trello or these kind of administrative programs are good ones too. Trello is like, you know, you get lists. So you could do the same where you could just have like chapter 1, you know, I really want to talk about the power of language. So everything that I want to talk about in the power of language, I'm going to put into this little like brain dump, right? So kind of up to you how you want to brain dump, but just let it be free. Don't edit it. Editing's for way later. This is just like, bleh. I just want you to barf everything on the page, you know, every thought that you have. And again, this might be 3, 4, 20 books, you don't know. And you could start moving it around. So that's probably somewhere where I would love for you to start after you get off this workshop and you're going to move forward, is just start dumping ideas and start thinking about the book in a different way. But first, just let it kind of go, I guess. So now I'm going to talk about the download of the book, or AKA writing the book, but I call it downloading because, actually, let me just go here, because that, Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you know who Wayne Dyer is, but he was one of my, I would say, beginning spiritual teachers that I really listened to. And I used to, when I lived in Vancouver and I worked in the movie industry, I would drive to and from work. It was maybe 20, 25 minutes. And I would listen to empowering audiobooks. And someone I listened to a lot back then was Wayne Dyer. I used to listen to all his on trips, I'd go on a cruise and I'd be listening to him in my headphones, right? On different kinds of things. And I really liked the way that he also broke things down and just made it easy to understand. And one of the things, and he wrote many books in his lifetime. And one of the things he talked about is how he writes his books. And back then I was not even maybe thinking of writing a book. I used to write maybe poetry, or I would write really great speeches for people as like their maid of honor or some parties or weddings, but he talked about the idea that it's like literally like a download, like it's coming from spirit and he's just the conduit. He's just the channel for it. And some of us maybe are more connected in that way, where we feel like we are channeling our thoughts, we're channeling books, we're channeling speeches, we're channeling videos, we're kind of channeling art, coming through us. And some of us maybe aren't connected in that kind of way. So I wasn't when I was kind of into this. So I actually used this technique to first start writing speeches for my girlfriend's weddings when I was asked to be the maid of honor or something. And so basically what he says is, for him, he gets up at 4 a.m. He does his prayer, he sits down, and he literally does something where he just says, like, spirit, kind of come through me, channel through me to write this book. Like, I'm not writing this book, I'm just holding the pen. Come channel through me and help me write this book. And that's how I used to also, and still do, if I'm going to do a speech or if I'm going to do anything, I just kind of ask for it to come through, and I don't really need it scripted. So I was very inspired by this, and I thought, wow, that's really next level and that's really cool. And I want to try that. So I did, and it worked for me. I can't say like spirit wrote my speeches, but I just kind of allowed it to be an easier flow, and it felt good. And then when I would write my books, I would lay out some stuff, like I'd have the brain dump, I'd have ideas of chapters. I definitely had chapters that I felt like, oh yeah, I got to talk about this, and I'm going to have to talk about this, and I want to talk about this. But then also when I was writing, I'd literally just get like this hit of like, oh, you got to talk about forgiveness, like you have to teach people how to write forgiveness. So then I was like, okay. So then sometimes I wouldn't like continue writing the next chapter I planned. I would just be like, okay, chapter 5 now is forgiveness, because I knew I would move it around anyway. And I would just write whatever I felt needed to come through for forgiveness. And then something else would come. It's like, oh, you need to talk about the power of language and how, I was like, okay. And then I would just write that. So your process is your process. However you want to play with it, that's up to you. I'm giving you some ideas, but I'm also giving you permission that you don't have to do the book writing yourself. Like, you can allow whatever the universal energy, God, consciousness, creator energy, whatever you want to call that, coming through your higher self, the little girl inside who wants to be seen, the little boy who wants to be heard, whoever is supporting this process, let it be a collaborative energy. Don't feel like you're all alone in this, and then do a little invocation, do a mantra, sit down and say, even if you don't know how, just be like, okay, spirit, let me help me write this book. Let's go, let's do this, and grab the pen and start doodling, start jotting. So again, just to kind of iterate, it's like about connecting. You could do a prayer around it. You can set some mantras. You can create your space, right? It could be really important for you to write in a certain space, in a certain desk, in a certain room. Maybe you have certain candles you light. Maybe there's some incense. Maybe there's music you put on. Maybe you write, like, oh, I'm only going to write my books in certain, a lot of my books I wrote, well, actually all over, but there were, like, let's say to finish this book, I went to Nusa Lembongan and rented, a room or little hotel room on the beach, right out front of the beach. And I was just like, I'm here to finish writing this book. And I just sat and would write. I'd swim, I'd go for a walk on the ocean, I'd eat, I'd swim, I'd keep writing. And I just gave myself 3, 4, 5 days, I don't even remember now, just to finish it. It had already been in the process. So you could do a little getaway. the times you write your book, it could be really important for you. Maybe you have maybe you have a full-time job, you can only write in certain times. Okay, write certain times. There could be like, you could be at full-time job and just go on your lunch break and write 20 minutes or write down a bunch of ideas. It could be important for you to get up at a certain time to write your book. It's just, it's whatever is going to work for you. There isn't anything specific. I can't really give you your thing, but I would say the more you sit down, the more you grab your computer, the more you do it, the more the flow will come. So I think sometimes we're like feeling maybe a little bit stuck. Ideas aren't coming. Again, just grab your book and just brain dump, just start playing around, write something. If you can see my video, and I will show again, these are like the iterations of my books. At first it's written in like a coil. It's, this is the first cover of I Am Amazing. I just created it blank because I didn't have a cover yet. It's like, you can just play with whatever just to make it happen, but stay diligent enough to make it happen. Because if you don't do it, if you don't sit behind your computer, you forget. So just try, like, even if you're, out of friends, everyone's watching a movie, maybe you're watching, but maybe you're writing, maybe you're out for dinner and then you just go, hey, you guys, I'm just going to sit down for 20 minutes. I'm going to write, like, whatever. You figure it out, you create it. And then, yeah, just create your opening around it and create your flow, just, again, of course, you can, structure is super important. And I will talk about that as well. But, it's about, yeah, like how you want to write is up to you. This is your baby. This is your art, whatever is going to work for you. Okay. So we did talk about location. If there is like a certain desk, maybe you want, sometimes if it's like too much clutter, you can't write. Maybe there's a certain area. Maybe it's just your laptop, it's just the key. You take that laptop anywhere you go, you just write. Time of day, up to you. The structure and the plan. So you could have a structured plan. You could say, you know what, I want to have this book done by July 1st. So I've got this many months. I've got this many days. I want to write this many, words or this many pages. So that means I got to write 3 pages per day. And I'm just going to create a little quota for myself and follow that. Or, I want to have this book done by Christmas. So every month I want to have 1 chapter done. Like, you get to kind of set whatever is going to work for you. But I say, set something, like figure something out. You're here on this workshop because you actually want to write a book. So do it. You know what I mean? Nothing is stopping you but you. Literally nothing. Technology, nothing. I'm giving you the path. Nothing is stopping you. I'll even offer you, like coaching afterwards if you want to buy like a package with me, or like an hour or something where we can dive deeper into your book. Like, you have support. It maybe doesn't have to be me, maybe it's someone else. You can watch YouTube videos. There's so much support in the world. There is nothing that'll stop you from writing your book but you. Again, amount of words. I didn't do it that way. I wanted to be more in flow. For me, I come from the corporate world. I come from organizing movies and producing movies and events. I came from a lot of masculine structure. In structure comes great freedom. I believe that, but I also love the idea of just being in a certain level of flow and just being able to write when I wanted to write, being able to go away and just play. I wanted to play with the process. I hadn't done it before. Maybe now, because I've done it, because I know it, maybe now it could be a little bit more like, oh yeah, I've got that cookbook I want to get done. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. I'm going to order the photographer here. I got to get it done by this. You can create that kind of structure around it. I invite you to the power of language. Language is very important. We cast spells with our words. Words can be very empowering. Words can be very diminishing. Words can lift someone up. They can make someone feel not so great. I invite you to think about the words that you use and the way that you want to elevate humanity through the words that you use and through the words that you think about yourself, through the words that you say inside of your head, as well as the words that you're going to put on the paper that someone else is going to read inside of their head. Right? You're literally transferring energy to someone. How do you want to transfer it? Editing, I would say that's a process of, you're going to edit the book over and over again. Don't edit yourself in the beginning. Let the free flow. Like, that's what I notice sometimes when people start to get first connected to sort of like flowing through, is that they'll like it, like they get a hit of like, oh, write about this. And then instead of writing about it, they're like, oh, I don't know, that's weird. Really? Should I write about that? It's like, just write it. You could delete it. It doesn't matter, but spirit or something is, you have inspired action, just take it. Don't edit yourself. I wouldn't say like, spell it horribly, but don't be going back and spell checking and capitalizing and all that stuff. I mean, write it as cleanly as possible so you don't have to like deal with a mess afterwards. But don't worry so much about any of that. That's going to become in the process. Now, you could edit your own books. You could have someone edit your books. You could obviously get involved with some type of outside publisher that helps edit your books. Again, your choice, your level of control over your books. Maybe call me a control freak, but I didn't want, when I got people offered to edit my books, I didn't want them to edit my books because they were going to make it into this like university language. And I'm not saying I'm speaking slang in my books, but I'm speaking in a way, I'm spacing stuff out. I'm not making it exactly grammatically correct in every moment because it's how you would talk. It's how you would flow. I want it that way. I didn't want someone to make me a university book. So even when the Czech book was being translated, the first translation of the first chapters or something, she made it very like university level, how the Czech people would speak in this like higher level language. And then I had another girl that was doing like a second edit on it. And she was like, no, that's not, because I speak Czech and I read, but I'm not that great at it. So I couldn't self-edit that book myself. And it was just like, oh no, like, hey, let me get the download. So even for everyone that's tried to or wanted to translate my books, there's a download that comes. It's like, this is the style, it's a friend talking to a friend. It makes you feel yummy. It opens up your heart. Like it's got to be written in that kind of way. And then I put in here AI technology because there is obviously AI that's coming out that's quite elaborate and extensive, where you could literally write books through AI. You could type in, I typed in just, I wanted to see what it would say. And it was kind of like along the stuff we're talking about, but just like how to write your best-selling book. And then it's like structure, it gave me an outline of like, boom, 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 boom. So if you've got a book you want to write or something, you could go into the chat AI software that's obviously on the internet now. And you could write like, how do I write a goddess book? Or what does it mean to be a goddess? And then maybe it comes up with like 20 chapter ideas that you're like, it's great. I didn't even think of that. So you can play with that. You can actually have it write, I think, even chapters and stuff, but it's not my style of writing. But I like the idea of using it for, like to maybe create some type of structure or, like just to figure out what is a common thing that maybe people would want to know when it comes to book writing. Like, am I on mark what we're talking about here? Am I missing anything? So you can use that. And I think it's interesting. And obviously it's going to get bigger and bigger, but there's still something so tactile about having a book, holding it in your hand, making it paper, and it being your creation process. Okay, the design of the book, and we're almost coming into, it's 11, so coming into an hour in, so make this quick. Obviously you want to play around with if you can see my screen where I'm on Zoom here, you can see it's like you want to play around with the cover, the font of the outside, the font of the inside. I'm a big fan of having a certain font, maybe 2 to 3 maximum, maybe 4 maximum that you use. And then I just duplicate them. Like my titles are all the same font. I like it. It feels unified. The subtitles are all the same font. The inside of the book, the writing is all the same font. The chapter titles are all a different font. Like there's a structure that I've created. I like these fonts. They look good. They're easy to read. That's important, right? Even if it's some super funky font and someone can barely read it, it's not worth it. You want the experience for the reader to be easy, doable, digestible. You want them to get the message from your book. You want them to get to the end of your book. If it's confusing, if they can't properly read it, it's too small, it's going to turn someone away. It's the same with making videos. If your video is visually gorgeous, but the audio sucks, people will turn it off. It's the same, right? If the transmission's not coming in, someone's going to put the book down. Chapters, again, how many chapters do you want to have? What are your flow of your chapters? Do you want to title them? Do you want to number them? What do you want to do with your chapters? Do you want to have quotes inside the book? Like I said, I like to have blank pages throughout the book that creates a bit of breathing space for someone with a quote on it. I don't like when I read a quote and it's just a quote pulled from the book as much. You know, I like to just make it something totally different. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. Sometimes you read like a quote, you're like drawn to it. It's like, oh, it's like something highlighted. But then you start reading the book and you're like, oh, it's just coming from here. It's the same message. It's not a different message. I like to use sort of my highlighted quotes as something that's different and unique. So it's another layer of a message I'm giving. And now this one's bigger, it's more empowering, it's more impactful. I'm not copying from the inside of the book. Oh, sorry, I have font in there twice. Artwork, artwork obviously on the front cover, artwork inside. You want to have like a few images. In the detox book, I do have like some images of juices and stuff, but we made it actually like just kind of hand drawn because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on extra ink. I didn't want the books to be more expensive. I already sell them, I believe, at a certain price point that I think is really doable. So the more I was going to increase my cost, the less I was going to, I was going to play into my profit. So, but again, if you're writing a cookbook or you're writing something with images, there's going to be a whole nother layer of, could you even get away with black and white? Maybe if it's color, is it okay if it's not like a super high res photo quality, but it's still good and it's still going to get your message across, and it's going to make your book maybe a little bit more doable to print and more cost effective. We've already talked about the feel and the style, I would say. The layout of the book. So the layout is where I put down here on the bottom, InDesign. That is a software program, kind of like a Photoshop or Word document or whatever it is, but it's a software that you can use to lay out the books. So you lay them out exactly size-wise, like you would upload to Amazon. You lay them out exactly how you would want them printed. You lay out the look, the quotes, the different stuff that you can't exactly do in a Word document. You lay it out exactly like a book. So it's on your screen, it looks like a book. You flip the pages, it's exactly laid out the way that you need. You can learn InDesign yourself. It's not super complicated, but I chose to hire someone that knew InDesign. So someone that I used for different like artwork, and we did some work together here in Bali, and we would sit together and we would design and lay out the book together. So again, for me, my version of creative control, I wanted that. When I first wrote the book, I paid someone, I think it was like $200 or $300 to give me the layout and the design. And I thought it looked horrible. It didn't have any of me. It was so like, ugh. So just visually unappealing. I'm all about beauty. It was not beauty. And so again, I just took it. I just said, I can do this. I can do this better. I didn't know, right? I paid someone first and I was like, wait, I can actually do this. And so I sat down with someone and we laid out, obviously he got the Word document, he put it all in there, but then it was like all about the spacing, what I wanted the chapter titles to look like, where I wanted the page numbers, where I wanted the quotes, what I wanted for the font, oh, I want those quotes just a little bit bigger, like make them 20% bigger. Oh yeah, now it's perfect, so I got to play with that. Again, the reader flow. How is someone reading your book from beginning to end? What's the experience? What's the journey? So it makes sense that maybe certain chapters are first, second, third, fourth. What's that kind of journey? When I wrote the Men's Kiss Me Like This book, it was really interesting because I felt like when I wrote it, the most important message was about sort of healing the masculine, within and some stuff. And I started to read it. I was just like, when I was going through the editing process, I thought, God, this is such a turnoff. Like, sure, men, it's important for them to look at their own consciousness and to be self-reliant for all of us, right? But just this book is for men. And to look at, their experience and how they're experiencing life. And I wanted them to question, to be self-reflective. But I thought that doesn't really sell, like at the beginning, it's like you start to read like something really heavy, like start to look at your shit, like be self-reflective. I thought, God, that's that's going to be somewhere in the middle. Once I got them hooked, once they're in, once they get it, once they're open, once their heart's opening, then I'll get into self-reflection. But first I'm going to talk about like kissing and taking a girl on a date. and how to go down on her and stuff that I felt was like, you know, more juicy and what a guy wanted to read. And if in the beginning that's all they read, who cares? They still got empowerment. They just maybe never got to the other portion of it, right? So that's where I would reorder my chapters again in Excel, and I would just kind of create a better flow for my chapters. Chapter sides, again, what I was talking about, and I'll show you when we're physically looking at each other, is, you know, all my books, when all the chapters start on the right hand side. So I don't have any chapters that start on the left. And if a chapter ends like early, that's where I've got space. I'll put like a quote card. That's where I would kind of create the blank pages as well, to be able to offset always starting my chapters on the right. I just like the flow of it. I think it looks better. It feels like more, you pop it open and you see the chapter right there. You don't have to kind of search which side it's on. Spacing, again, if you self-publish, you get to play, like, you know, do you want the words to be bigger? Do you want them more spaced out? Do you want more breathing space? Do you want spaces between chapters? So you get to play around with that. Okay, let's move on to publishing the book. So as I mentioned, you can self-publish. What does that really mean? Well, that means that you're taking on the process of kind of all the back end stuff. So after even maybe the writing, because a lot of publishers will help write the book with you, maybe create the structure for you, maybe tell you you have to have this many pages. You know, they maybe are making you more accountable by saying, you know, you have to have like X number of pages to me every week. So you're accountable, you're working. Where when you're self-published, you're your own boss. You know, you're creating it for yourself. There isn't anyone really bossing you around, unless maybe you work with a coach or someone who's like, okay, let's go. I'm keeping you accountable. What's your hurdle? What questions do you have? What's holding you back? Where do we need to brainstorm or move forward so that you can keep going, right? So you can work with someone like that, like me or someone else. And then you can also do that hybrid publisher that I was saying, which the lady that I know that I spoke to, that's in Canada actually, she created a company, kind of like a self-publishing company / publishing company. So it's a little bit kind of a hybrid, but she'll take, she takes all of that on for you, the back end. They have usually a copywriter, they've got an editor, there's someone going through your book, they've got someone who designs the cover, the back for you. You know, they're going to get it up on Amazon for you. They're going to get it into Ingram Books for you. They're going to create probably that whole marketing angle to get you as a #1 bestseller on Amazon, which can create obviously more, sorry if my dogs are barking in the background, more readership and more eyes on your book, but maybe not. You know, you can just get on video. You could be charismatic talking. You can be connecting, have partnerships with people, put it into books. You don't really need someone to do it for you. I haven't, and my books have sold very well. So again, to go into publishing and self-publishing, obviously you have much more control. It is more work in the sense that you've got to kind of take care of all these back-end things, but you can also get onto some of those, you know, like sites or even posts like, hey, anyone in my community that's a book editor, I really need a book editor to go through my book. You can just do it kind of that way. You don't have to, you can still self-publish, but you can also bring in people to help you with different aspects like I did, which is I had a designer that helped me with the covers of the books. I had ideas for what I wanted, but there were times where I had an actual designer doing some of the artwork. I, you know, like for example, the I Am Amazing book, if you can see it in the Zoom, this is me on a mountain in Haleakala on Maui. And I said, I didn't really want it to be like, it's me, right? It's a figure. I wanted these big angel wings. I wanted this like ocean. I couldn't, and I just kind of asked for what I wanted. And she gave me some stuff back. We played around with it and I got what I wanted. I talked about what I wanted for the cup, like for the spine and what I wanted for the back. And we just played around with it, but I did have someone designing. And then eventually with the other books, it was kind of a little bit more simple. You know, the men's book actually doesn't really have artwork except right in the top corner. And I just did it myself with my guy. So publishers, sometimes they'll, like a publisher nowadays, traditional publishers won't even take you on unless you have, I don't know, X number of followers on Instagram, social media, all that, because back in the day, a publisher did all the promotion. They would send you on book tours. They would get the books in front of people. They don't really do that anymore. They kind of rely on you to really self-sell and market your books, a lot of it. You know, they're maybe going to get it into the different Barnes and Nobles or these kinds of bigger bookstores, but are they really doing a big marketing campaign for you? And most of them, when I've connected with them, they don't send you people on book tours anymore. They don't really do a lot of that. So you're doing it yourself, but you're getting maybe 10 cents for your book rather than maybe $10 if you self-published. So it's a big difference. And they might have a bigger reach. Again, they might be able to do bigger campaigns. They might have like, databases of people that they can send your book in front of. Or again, you might be doing it a lot on your own, but you're just getting a lot less money. So kind of up to you which route you want to go. The main things about self-publishing that you obviously need to know is you need to get it up on Amazon, which Amazon and CreateSpace used to be two companies that would work together where you would put your book on CreateSpace. It would actually create the book that then Amazon would sell. Does that make sense? So someone would buy your book on Amazon. Amazon would send the order to CreateSpace that held your PDF file and your JPEG file of your cover. It would print the book, it would give it to Amazon, and Amazon would ship it to the customer. Well, CreateSpace and Amazon merged, so it's one. So the beauty of having a book on Amazon is that you don't have to send them boxes of your book. It is purely print on demand. That means your books are not sitting in warehouses. You haven't spent any money. You actually don't even spend any money putting your book on Amazon. It is completely free. All that happens is if I buy your book, Amazon in that moment will print your book and send it to me. So I think Amazon is fantastic. It's obviously all over the world. It's a matter of obviously getting people in front of your Amazon page to buy your book. But if you are doing some type of promotion, maybe even doing some videos, you have a lot of friends, you have friends around the world, every once in a while you talk about your book on social media, you post about it. Maybe you offer some free workshop around your book to kind of dive deeper, and then suggest people buy your book. Like there's so many opportunities for you. You have a link to continually send people, and you have a big author page on Amazon. And the more books you write, the more you can put them on. Ingram Sparks is another upload that you would do. I have not done this one yet, mainly because I was not kind of targeting the United States and stuff as much, but I will again now. But Ingram Sparks is more where bookstores would go to buy books for their shops to fill. So it's another way for you to be able to distribute your books. I think even maybe to like Walmart and some different places. But again, someone has to want to order that book from Ingram Sparks. So in other words, like then your best bet would be to maybe go and connect with a store or a shop or like a chain of shops, Costco's or Amazon's, like Walmart's or something, pitch your book, get them to want to order your book, and then get them to buy it through Ingram Sparks. Or you could even, if you are in your country or in where you are, you could literally be sending a box of books to the shop, right? So for example, for me, I sell my books here in Bali and I get them printed here on Bali. And I basically will bring a box of books to my shop and then they will sell it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Another thing that's kind of become a lot bigger as well is audiobooks again. Now, I grew up on audiobooks. I used to love audiobooks. I still love audiobooks, but it's become a little bit more mainstream. More people are listening to audio, podcasts, audiobooks. So you can create your book into an audiobook as well. One of two ways. You can, it's part of KDP, which is Amazon's sort of self-publishing derivative. Oh my God, you know the word. Section. It's called KDP, and KDP is where you upload your books, where you hold all your content, where you can like see the track record of your books being sold. It's like it's your own sort of self-publishing house, let's say. And then KDP is speaking to Amazon and giving all the information to Amazon. So KDP also now has a division for audiobook creation. So you can do it one of two ways. You can pay an actor a certain amount of money, or it's a back-end sales. So same with Amazon, you don't get paid until a book is sold. Same with audiobooks, you don't get paid. You don't have to pay until maybe the book is, or someone bought it. But you can have someone who can record it for you. They have professional actors. You can choose your voice, you can choose an accent, you can choose a lot of stuff. Or you can go into a studio maybe even in your home, but sound, like I said, is really important. So you can go into a studio and you can record the book yourself. And then you can, again, sell it up on Amazon. You can sometimes with a lot of these places, let's say with the audiobook, they don't want to hold it on Amazon or KDP or like for downloads if you're selling it in other modalities. Sometimes they want to kind of keep it to themselves. So again, you know, you might get more reach, but you're kind of limited. So you get to play with how you want to play that. And then of course, another option for you is to never print a book and just to create an ebook, which that means it's just a book online. So there, I will look it up. I know I told Ian about it, but there is a software that I bought that will create much prettier than Canva, let's say, but it's a little bit more structured for ebooks. So Canva is a design tool software where you can create posters and business cards and you know, various stuff with images and fun things to play and created for your business. And you can create ebooks in there, and you can create menus. You can create so many different kinds of things, recipe books, right? Everything. But this particular software, which I will write down for you guys, is just focused on ebooks. And they even have like a flip kind of like software. So you can make it look like a real like book where someone could purchase it. And then it's literally like flipping the pages on the screen, and you can do it that way, right? And actually, I didn't write down here and that I think of it, but also Kindle is another option that you're going to be able to upload to Amazon. And that's, again, a digital version of your book, but it is in the Kindle format. It's not in PDF format, which PDF you can make yourself. But Kindle format, it's formatted a certain way if people have a Kindle reader. And then they can read the book kind of like it's formatted like it looks like it was a paper book, but it's actually digital, but it's laid out the same. It's not laid out like a Word document. Okay, so then we're going to get to the last bits here, and then we're going to get into questions. Printing of the book. So obviously researching print shops. Some print shops will charge you a big amount of money. Some will be really inexpensive. Some are using really good quality paper. Some don't have that access. Some it looks like a photocopy, you know, some it looks like a real good book. So you really want to play with this. And I would just suggest that you just want to print your book, you know. So when you're in the editing stages of your book, you know, I edit my book on my computer first. So I'll go through it one draft, maybe even 2 times, maybe even have someone go through it. And then I print it. So if you can see on the camera, I just print it like with a little binding like this. After we've laid it out in InDesign, you can actually print it even before you lay it out. You can just print it from the Word doc. So it looks like a script, let's say. And when you see it physically, you can maybe spot different mistakes, or you notice like, oh, I don't like this, or this isn't descriptive enough. I need to add a little bit more. So then you can write in the corner. So I invite you to kind of do that actually first before you lay it out with a designer, because you're going to have to then hire the designer to edit again. But even so, I still do that. So I print it out. I do edits on the computer. I then print it out. I'm looking at it. It looks different. Maybe I do more edits. Then I get it into InDesign. We lay it out to look like an actual book. And then I print it again, a rough draft, no real cover, just, you know, just the pages. I bind it with these little coils, and then I go through it again. And then now I see it, what it looks like a book. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like the flow of the chapters. Sometimes I've taken it apart, and then I just like on the floor, I'm laying out the chapters and I'm moving them around, or on like a cork board or something. You can move around the chapters. It's good to see it visually. And then eventually I get it into an actual like book, and then I go through it again, you know, and I just want to look at it. I just want to see how it flows. How does it feel? You know, is something missing? And then when it's kind of gone through that stage, then I'll finally print it and I'll finally upload it to Amazon. So yeah, you definitely want to look around for print shops, the type of paper you want to use, you know, again, do you want to be on recycled? Do you want to be on regular? You know, feel the paper. Does it feel good? Some books to me are written in this, like, I don't know, almost like kind of like a newspaper book, but maybe it's more eco-friendly, but I don't like the feel of it. I don't like when maybe even like the ink is going on my fingers, you know. So again, what's the feeling of your book? The book size. So Amazon has certain sizes that it prints. So when you create your book, you're going to want to choose a certain size. They're kind of a standard. Most of them are these standard size of the book, but sometimes you want to have a bigger book. But for example, if you can see in the video here, this book, the I Am 5 Things I Love About You book, is a very tiny little book, and I wanted it to be tiny. But Amazon does not have this as an option. So I printed it. So we designed it. This book is designed 2 ways. It's designed to be printed. So it's printed cute and small, which I like. It's like a little pocket book. And then I chose the smallest size on Amazon. We had to reformat it so that Amazon could actually print it. But it's a little bit bigger than this because Amazon does not have this. So when you're playing with book sizes from a printer and you're a designer, you can make the book a tiny little book. It could be like, fit into your tiny pocket, or you can make it big. You can play around. You can make it hardcover or soft cover. It's up to you. And the same with Amazon. When you print, you can print hardcover, but it's going to be more expensive. And they're going to take a bigger cut, right? So Amazon takes a certain cut. So for example, sorry. So for example, I'm selling my books on, now I'm losing my voice, Astrid. So for example, I sell my books around $20 US, sometimes 25 on Amazon. And I get an average of about $10 to $12 for my book. So they take almost, maybe more than 50%. 60 to 70%. But still, honestly, you guys, it's like the funnest thing to wake up and read your email and just see that you sold a book and you didn't even know who and you didn't even know from where. And it's like, oh, the book was sold in Japan. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing, right? So Amazon's amazing to me. And then, yeah, the book size, a PDF. So again, you're going to start with kind of creating a PDF with it, but you could also just print it as a PDF. You could sell it as a PDF. You could literally sell it on your website, say for $7, I've got this book, $10, $20. And all they do is download a Word doc PDF. You never go through the design process. You never design it to look like a book. It just looks like an everyday Word document PDF. No problem. You could do that. You could probably even try and see if you could do it where people can't download it, so they can't maybe take it, or you could even do some watermarking on it. And that's where you can also create an ebook, right? Where you don't actually physically go through the printing process, but maybe in the ebook, you add photos and you make it a little bit visually more pretty. For Amazon, for example, they want either, I can't remember if it's a JPEG or a PDF. Printing for your cover, you either want to create it into a JPEG or a PDF. And I can't remember which one is which, but I know I have to create both. I think it's maybe Amazon takes the PDF and then as a cover, and then the printing shops take a JPEG as the cover. It's one of the two. I'd have to look. And then, of course, Adobe is, another software that Adobe is actually what InDesign is part of. It has Photoshop and InDesign. So if you want to use it for making kind of like some more images and laying out some certain things, like if you're doing a recipe book, it might not work as well in InDesign. It might work better in like a Canva or Photoshop, because you're able to move photos around and you're able to design it. Whereas InDesign is created a little bit more for sort of a print type of book. Again, we talked about Amazon and we talked about CreateSpace, which is now merged with Amazon. And then let's talk about the last thing, which is to sell your book. So there's obviously different ways to sell it. So as a physical book, the first easiest way is for you to sell it is consignment. So that means that you would find a shop, a hotel, even maybe someone who wants to partner with you, where you say, look, I've got this book. The cost of it to you, or the consignment cost is $10. And then in your shop, you can sell it for $20, and I will take 60%, you keep 40%, or I will take 70%, you keep 30%, or it's a 50-50, like whatever you kind of arrange. Usually with my shops, it used to be a 60-40 split. Sometimes 70-30, meaning I took 60 and they took 40 for holding the space, having the shop, paying the rent, having the lights, having the staff, carrying my books, all that. And then with consignment, Usually it's like a monthly, they'll do like a monthly report. Okay, you gave us 20 books, we sold 3 books. This is how much we owe you. This is how many books we have left. When you have multiple books like I do, it becomes really complicated because it's like, oh, we gave you this many of this book. We gave you this many of this book. We sold this many of this book. And it can be tricky. Consignment, someone could ruin the book. Someone could spill coffee on it. They grab it. They're holding a coffee. They spill it. They bend the pages. They steal it. It gets a little tricky. So you want to have something in, that as well, where I think I had it where if something got damaged to the book, they would at least just pay me cost because I held it in their shop and it was their responsibility, but I didn't make any profit. So if all the books got stolen, I would have made no profit and they would have made no profit. Also with a lot of bookstores, you want to give them a book copy, meaning that if you're going to give them 20 books to sell, you give them for free 1 book that is accessible, open. Maybe it says store copy on it, something in big block letters, because people, I don't know, bad people want to steal it. And that way people can come into your shop. They have the ability to be able to open the book, look at it, peruse through it. Sometimes if it's if it's a restaurant or something, you might even want to have some table copies lying around, where people, or you might want to put one on their shelf where people could grab it and then they're selling it. So you can play around with all different kinds of ways like that. And usually I have my books in like a plastic. Now, because we're in Bali, it's damp here. It's humid. The books will start to curl, usually the covers, unless I get like a really hard cover, which I don't want to. I want the books to be light enough for people to throw in their bags as well, but quality enough, right? So you got to find that fine line. So I used to have a plastic little like pouch that I would put all the books in. That way they didn't get dusty. A few shops are anti-plastic. They don't want that. So they maybe only put out 1 or 2 books and then they have the rest behind the counter. I'm moving away from consignment as much as possible because it's just the back end of it is really a pain in the butt, especially with the multitude of books I have. And it's always like them tracking it, taking time. I'm tracking it on my end because I always catch mistakes. They always owe me more money than they kind of say that they do. I've lost a lot of books that way. A shop went under. I didn't get paid, so you got to be really kind of organized. And on the back end, again, if you have 1 book, it makes it a little bit easier. But I'm moving into wholesale. So also my books are proven. So that's the other thing is you might need to do consignment in the beginning to prove it with the shops or wherever that it's worth it for them to invest a couple $100 to $1,000 to buy your books up front, which is the wholesale. So my wholesale prices are the same as the consignment prices. I don't make it any cheaper because I still find it's cheap. It costs me about, let's say about $5 to print a book. And then I sell it usually for like about $15 to a shop. And if I'm selling it physically to someone, I usually sell it for about $20. I still make it really reasonable at the back of my room, back of friends. Usually I sell it for like 15, which is about the cost. But remember, your cost to print a book is maybe $5, but you might have paid someone to design it. You might have paid someone to do the cover. You spent your time on it. You might have paid someone as an editor. Like you got to kind of put all that stuff in and realize the book probably costs more. And for a big portion of your time, you're just paying back kind of your costs and then putting them back into printing more books. So again, we talked about shops. One thing about the shops with my books that you might want to think about for yours is I didn't want to go necessarily into a bookstore. I don't want to be sitting on a shelf. I want to be boutique-y. I'm in, like, let's say if Bali is like, we have the Pyramids of Chi, which has, this whole like sound experience. And then they've got the gift shop, right? So people come, peruse, they want to feel a bit of Bali. They want to take a bit of Bali home. They usually get drawn to my book. They'll buy it. I'm in some yoga shops. I'm in, some yoga studios. I'm in a few places, but it's, again, the books are very displayed. I usually create book stands for them, these little wooden book stands. I also had, and still do have, but like stickers and cards that go with the book. So it's like a whole branding thing. And it's more of a display. And so that's kind of where you want to think about, because sometimes if you stick your book just in a bookshelf, no one's going to see it. But if you think about the style of the book you want to create, and if it's a little bit more where it can be kind of displayed, a little gift shoppy, I think it sells better. Amazon, we talked about. Obviously, you can sell on your own website, your books as well. So you could literally just have like a PDF download, or if you want, you could be shipping books to people through the post or the courier. You know, if you're in the United States, my ex-partner, we had his book that we got all over Hawaii and the Hawaiian Islands, and we would sell it across the United States. But in the United States, to stick a book into an envelope was a flat fee of like $2.50. So it was really doable. Whereas, you know, shipping from Bali is very expensive. Shipping from Canada, I think, is expensive. Maybe Europe, it's like, so that's why Amazon is just easy, because most people will get free shipping with Amazon and they'll just buy it through Amazon. But you can do your own website. You can also create videos and a whole, you know, like video series around your book. You could create a 4-week coaching program, and the book comes for free, whether you mail it to them or they get a PDF. You could have, you know, someone to sign up with your coaching for, like, you want to teach them how to do something for 3 weeks or 3 months. They get a free book. You create a retreat. The books are going into the goodie bags. You know, you create a workshop, a class, a cooking class. You can sell the books to the back of the room. So you can kind of make it as part of a coaching package. You can make it where, like, hey, you buy the book and I give you a free coaching session or a free coaching package, or a group coaching or a group cleanse, or the other way around. Hey, we're doing a group cleanse, you know, join and you get a free book. You know, it can kind of go both ways. You might even be able to get it into like a hotel where they just have it beside their bed, you know, like in every hotel room. Like, there's so many partnerships that you can create. Also, something to look into is, like Agneta's doing, is teaming up with nonprofits or charities, where for them to sell the book or someone to buy. So like, let's say you've got your book and you're supporting a nonprofit. So now you find an investor or company that, one sec. You find an investor or company that has some money, that maybe wants to do something, wants to do a reach, and you say, well, you know, if you want, you can buy like this wholesale, this book, and we will send it to this charity, or we will send it to this organization, or we will do it through this. We're going to put your name into it with like a letter saying it's coming from you, and you get to use it as a write-off, and you get to sell your book to a big group of something that's connected to some kind of charity. Like, for example, my I Am Amazing book. And again, if I was more in the Western world, I think it would work, and than being in Bali. But it was like, you know, this could have gone into all these women, like shelters and empowerment places for women, organizations that were helping women get back on their feet, diet and weight loss, where people just wanted more self-love, more power. So I could have teamed up with them, or I could have actually directly teamed up with them, or I could have went to an organization that wanted to create a charitable write-off, that was interested in helping, you know, street women, let's say. And I could say to them, look, like, okay, look, we have a common, let's create a triangle here. You want to help them, but how about if you buy 1,000 of my books and we send it to these 3 shelters or these 3 organizations? We put your name in it. It's your tax write-off. And you've created a business for yourself by selling your book, or just actually getting your message out. So there's like different ways that you can play around with it, and you can play around with it with even just a one-on-one type of partnership with someone. You know, you could be like, hey, you have a lot of reach on social media. I've got my book. How about if through me, you know, you offer something and sell my book? Let's talk about your book, and every book that's sold through your link, you get a certain percentage, or I'll give you a kickback of something, or I'll give you free something, you know? So you can just kind of create partnerships. And this really is a calling card for you. Doesn't matter what you use it for. Like I said, you go to a birthday party, you can give your book as a gift. You go to a business meeting, you're like, oh, and I wrote some books. You know, it just kind of makes you a little bit more credible. It makes you look like you're an authority in something. Oh, well, wow, she must know her stuff because she wrote a book, even though, you know, people are writing books with AI nowadays. But it does take a certain level of discipline. It does take some knowledge. And especially if your books are actually selling and you get that feedback, right? That's the whole thing. It's like, it's one thing to write a book. It's another to actually sell it. And then it's another to sell it over and over and over again. When the shops start asking for it again to be restocked and again to be restocked, you know, you got something. And that's what I would say I would want for all of you. So I would say that we're going to wrap up this portion. If you and I are not connected on social media, I'm Petra Eat Juicy on social media. And I have some stuff at eatjuicy.com if you want to sign up for some more tips and practices and things. And I would also say for all of you, we're going to hop onto questions. But if you are interested in diving deeper, you know, I do one-on-one coaching and coaching packages. And if you're interested to dive a little deeper where you want a little bit more personal one-on-one with your book, we can do that as well. I teach health and self-empowerment. It's more my bigger thing, but I do feel passionate about people writing their books because I know how much joy it's given me. You know, I feel like this has been a really great thing. And I feel like it's raised my respect and caliber in the community because I've written books. To be able to get people to write to me on social media and tell me that they love my books is huge. You know, so I invite you to something like that. You know, in the front of my book, I literally say, if you want to reach out to me, I'm so and so on social media. Sometimes you don't even know how to find the author. I'm like, write to me, you know, connect with me. I want to hear from you. So to be able to get that feedback, to also be able to get like the dings in the morning where you're like, oh, I just sold 3 books. Like, to who? How amazing. And then to be able to sell it at the back of the room, or to be able to just like give it away, just to have it, to display it, to lay on it. I don't know, to do whatever you want with it, really. It just, I don't know, it's pretty powerful. And I will say the most empowering thing that I wish for all of you is it's super fun to get the first book from the printers, or even like, you know, the first, even if it's like just a document, right? That's kind of cool in itself. We have it in print, you're holding it in your hand, it's not on your computer. And then it's another thing to get a box of books from the printers. And for me, that's like the biggest Christmas present. It's so fun. And I invite all of you, when you get to that point, to film yourself opening that box, because it really is so cool to think that you went from idea to literally holding this in your hand, and to have a box, and to, yeah, to be able to do whatever you want with it. Even if you never do anything with it, even if it's kindling for your fire, which I hope it's not going to be, but you know, it's just, it's the process. It's your own self-actualization. Doesn't matter really in the end what you do. Yeah, it's proving to yourself that you've got an idea, that you went through with it, and that you can create something that you feel really proud and really happy with. So I'm just going to stop sharing now. Let's see. And I'm going to end the recording. So I love you. Thank you for listening. And we'll go further and deeper if you want to. And I'm now, oh no, I want to, oh, there we go. End recording.